Hi, my name is Cassandra Steer, and today we're going to talk about performance assessment development. The first thing we need to know when we are coming up with our performance assessment, we need to know the standard. The standard I have chosen is LAFS.3.RL.1.2. That means it's a third grade standard in Florida, and it's recount stories including fables, folktales, and myths from diverse cultures, determine the central message, lesson, or moral, and explain how it is conveyed through the key details in the text. The learning targets are kind of simplifying what the standard's saying. Learning targets that I came up with were learning target 1, sequence the key events, details including the problem. Learning target 2, determine the author's message by thinking about what the character learns. And learning target 3, explain how the author used key details to show a central message. And that's just keeping it simple for the students and helping them understand what the standard's saying and breaking down what needs to be taught so the students can have success. So to justify what the learning targets are with the knowledge, reason, skill, and product, the knowledge is the student has the knowledge and is able to explain the key events, key details, in order to sequence the events, understand the problem, and what the character in the story learns, and is able to understand the overall message of the story. It is important that they are also able to reason, so they know what's happening within the target, and then they know what's happening within the lesson. So with reason, I put it's important that students can learn from literature. Students can comprehend and understand what's happening in the story. And in the skill, discuss the lessons we learn from folk tales. This would be kind of more of the theme and the message that the author is trying to convey. So the skill for this particular lesson is the theme of the story. And then the product is decide the theme using the text evidence to justify their thinking, to be sure to involve information about the characters, the way they think, what they're saying, and how they're feeling. Now we've moved on to our student template. And so we're going to talk about the goal, the role, the audience, and the product. The goal is to be able to identify the morals and lessons, identifying sequence, and explain the key details in the story. The role is for the students to work together with their shoulder partner and read a folktale and take turns being the teacher. So they're going to take turns discussing what they think the message of the story is, what the moral of the story is. They're going to discuss the key details of the story, what they believe the moral of the story is, and they're going to discuss the different aspects of the story, such as the sequence of events and main idea, key details, but especially we're focusing on, with this standard, we're focusing on the learning targets, and so we're focusing on pulling out those key details, sequence, and the theme of the story. And then with our audience, your audience will be the class. So they'll be sharing the story. They choose with the class. They'll be presenting what the overall message of the story is. And the products, the student will create a story using the same lesson, the characters learned in the story. This will be the only thing that is the same in the story, is the lesson that its characters have learned. You must have a sequence of events and key details to make the story interesting. And next, the students will be giving the student rubric. The student rubric has the I can statements for each learning target. So I can sequence the key events and details, including the problem. I can determine the author's message by thinking about what the character learns. I can explain how the author used key details to show a central message. And so they'll go down in the level 3, they get their master score. They get a level 2, then it's a partially meets, and then a level 1, it does not meet. And then there's a place for teacher feedback, so they would know exactly where they were successful or where they were struggling, and then where they need more work. And then the teacher can also keep this as a guide as to what standard or what learning target the student might still need work on. Assessment critiques are important to look at the story or to look at your lesson and to identify, are there anything that can be changed or that needs to be changed. As I'm going through, I'm looking at the assessment critiques, and I'm looking at assessment 1. Assessment, it serves a clear and appropriate purpose. Did the author specify users, and are these appropriate? Rating, description, and support. The purpose of the assessment is to identify understanding. So the purpose is to identify the understanding from the students of the theme. Are they able to go back and make sure they have a sequence and key details in their story? Key 2, assessment reflects valued achievement targets. Has the developer clearly specified the achievement targets to be reflected in the assessment? Do these represent important learning outcomes? The learning targets are clear and match the standard. Success strategies could be used, such as I will be able to sequence key events, details, and the problem. Key 3, design. Does the selection method make sense in given goals and purposes? Is sampling appropriate to get an estimate of the student learning? Is there anything in the assessment that might be misleading to the result? I put the assignment for the student is to create a story that includes sequence of events, the lesson or moral of a story. This assignment is clear and straightforward and should not confuse the student. And continuing on with assessment critiques, key 4 is communication. Is it clear how the assessment helps communication with others about student achievement? If students are able to match the theme of the story with their own story, it will be an example of how students comprehend the story, and it'll show what the student knows and understands in relationship to the standard and the learning targets. And then key number 5 is student involvement. It is clear how students are involved in the assignment as a way to help them understand achievement targets, practice hitting those targets, see for themselves the growing in their achievement, and communicate with others about their success as learners. And so I said the students are creating and using their imaginations while tying in content of folktale they have read. So they're tying in the moral or lesson of the story. They're making sure they have the sequence. They're adding their key details, and the students are involved because they're the ones who are creating everything. And then they'll be presenting, so then they'll be listening to each other as they present too and giving feedback to other groups. And here are my references that I cited. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.